Welcome to Comic Cave, the ultimate podcast where art and Dungeons and Dragons collide. I'm your host, DnDWife, and I'm thrilled to take you on a creative journey like no other. Each week, we'll dive into the world of fantasy art, exploring stunning digital pieces, intricate miniature paintings, and captivating character portraits. I'll be joined by amazing guest hosts, sharing their insights, tips, and tricks to help you bring your own artistic visions to life. We'll uncover the stories behind each artwork, from the initial spark of inspiration to the final brushstroke. And as a special treat, much of the art we discuss will be from our beloved homebrew world of Extrayus. So whether you're a seasoned artist, a curious newbie, or just a fan of nerd culture, Comic Cave is here to inspire and connect you with the magic of creating art that reflects your passions. Join us every week on Comic Cave, and let's embark on this artistic adventure together. Don't forget to subscribe and let your imagination soar. Welcome back to Comic Cave. Today we're diving into something truly epic, one of the most important stories in our homebrew world of Extrayus.
That's right. We're revealing a new set of digital artwork, a breathtaking set of panels detailing the creation of the world itself, from the quiet void to the chaos of rebirth.
Stick around as we explore each panel's story, the artistic challenges, and share tips for staying inspired as creators.
Plus, don't forget to check out all the artwork on our Discord and join the conversation.
So I'm really excited about this one. I'm doing this one. So these are my pieces.
These are the DnDWife originals.
Yeah. We wanted to give artists like a bit of a break for the holidays with all the comics and stuff. So
yeah, and I think really the cool thing too is how different the kind of focus of your guys' kind of artistic design is, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you're here with me kind of building the building blocks of the planet, the people. There's so much more where she's kind of focused on the characters and the story. But without you, I don't have much to go off of. Right. So we've been working together a little bit on this one.
Mostly I create like the references for how the visual references for how things look.
Yeah, which obviously for a DM is super important.
Yeah. So, a lot of these are just to help you, but for this one I really liked it. I wanted to show what the world, how it came into being. So
because I think it was all based off of the kind of intro story I created that you started this and you were like, hey, can you give me a little bit more detail so I can make it correct? But I want to not necessarily write this down, but I want to draw
put it down,
what this looked like. And of course I was down.
Yeah. So let's get into this. There is a total of 5 panels for this kind of set, and it's a sort of evolving project. It's not necessarily complete. So I don't know if there will just be these 5, or perhaps there will be more later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the both the greatness and curse of homebrew is there's a lot of retconning sometimes, or the one unfortunate thing of having to hide certain details from you as being the still player.
That's true. There's some stuff I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. There might be something missing from this, right, that I didn't include. So
that we might find out later.
We'll see. But really, we want to start off with the first panel, which I just called The Void. And it's a very simple panel just because obviously it's the void. So it's nothing. It's representing nothing. So it's really just a blackish void with just a little hint of purple on the edges and in the center just to give it like an extra hue. So it just doesn't look like a black square or rectangle.
Right. And it's so funny too because it may look very kind of just plain, just very basic, but in reality what it represents to us is kind of the microcosm that was all of our past history and campaign. So it's like, oh, it's just this stuff. It's like, well, no, it represents so much more.
It's been reduced to, this, but from nothingness, it had to come from somewhere.
I think that's what's so great about this expression, especially with it being just the void, right? Like it's that very kind of, religious or scientific allegory of just like there was first nothing and then it was just a void.
Boom. Yeah. And that leads us actually into the second panel, which I called The Void Alive. And that one is you just see the hint, the smallest twinkling of stars starting to pop up in the void as it starts sort of to spark with life and energy. And, we call this the void, and that's a part of it, but it's so much bigger than just the space around the planet. So just keep that in mind for later as you're looking at these.
Right, and the cool thing about, as we built more into the world, and we call them stars, but in reality we know that they're fragments.
Yeah, they're shards.
They're shards of these, like, former beings from long past that have gone.
Yep.
And so it brings essentially that other greater context to it, where a person would look at this and go, oh, it's stars and stuff. But for us, it and with it being specifically Extrayus, there's so much more actually what we know going on behind of how much life is actually being created because of these stars.
So in essence, they're not twinkling into existence, they're arriving.
Yep.
Into the space that I'm painting, sort of. And then the third panel is really where you start seeing stuff come into actual play. It's called Extrayus Born, and this one you definitely see the shards, the stars in the background are much more visible. They're really out there. There's much more of them too, different colors, blues, reds, purples, all sorts of different lights up in there, because as we know, all the shards are from different types of power. So they're not all just one singular color. And then in the center, we see what we came to see, the world of Extrayus as it first came into being, completely untouched. It's a little different because the land masses are blue and the ocean is green, because that is the color scheme of our world.
Yeah, it just kind of gives it both that like alien look, as well as what we've come to know to be, our normal world with Extrayus and all that. But it really kind of shows...
it's a new world.
That potential, right? Just like I imagine when the Earth was first made, right? And it just kind of stood out as this little blue marble. And so it's like, that's just kind of that show of the potential of what could come.
The blank slate that is the world.
And which we knew on planet side was the time of Eden.
Where it was completely untouched by anything, any outside influence. And everything was just flourishing down there, It was really nice. But then comes panel 4, Extrayus Betrayed. And in this one, we see we've heard a little bit of the story through Lore Drop and the Chronicles.
Followed Lore Drop,
where the elves sort of made a mad dash for power, and to do so, they created the Estelestar tree, or grew the Estelestar tree on the world. And there you see not just the world sort of enlarged on the canvas, but you see this giant tree where really you just see the top canopy, which is just like a sort of green mass.
How far back the perspective
and then from underneath that mass, you see the giant roots that spread throughout the world and sort of, wove themselves through the very continents themselves.
Yeah, I always thought this was kind of a really good point in this kind of panel, in that it really shows kind of that back to control kind of symbolism, where one might view it of like, oh, life, this tree's growing, but by seeing the roots kind of spreading across the surface, it also can be construed as like this kind of control, or this taking away of like the kind of the beauty that was the planet's untouched aesthetic.
Well, yeah, if you can see, the foliage of Extrayus is blue, the leaves are blue, and the tree trunks and the stems and stuff like that tend to be blue as well, or red, orange, that type of color. And the Celestar tree is not that. It has green leaves. It has brown trunks and roots. So it is not of that world. It is not native to Extrayus. So it's really poignant to see something that is sort of reminiscent of like earth trees in a brand new alien world that is supposed to be untouched by that sort of idea. And that leads us to the last sort of panel, at least for now, Extrayus Reset. And in this one, the SLSR tree is completely gone once more. There's nothing. Yep. It's not there. And it seems as if everything has returned to what it was in the time of Eden. But if you look very closely at the center of Extrayus in the panel, there is a small black dot in the center. And nobody, not even us right now, the players, know what that is, what that means.
Not really many satellites.
What it represents, if it's symbolic, if it's physical in the world, we don't know. It could be a spiritual dot, black dot or black mark on the world, for all we know. So, it's interesting as we go on to see where that leads us. I'm excited to do more panels, but that is sort of the series of Extrayus, the world coming into being.
Right, at least for now.
Right? I really loved doing this sort of series. I haven't really done a series like this before, where they're all interconnected pieces of art that kind of tell a story in sequence. So this was a new one for me, and I just really appreciated that sort of storytelling aspect of it. It was really nice. That's my favorite part of all these panels.
Yeah, for me, obviously, they're always a great storytelling aspect to see that transition. Being the dungeon master, seeing kind of the world as it is now is always, to me, the most useful, as not only just to see, to visualize, but also to use for my players. So I always like the one with the, Extrayus reset, just because it represents the current status of the kind of world, our homebrew world.
Gotcha. But I'm really excited to, keep working on this, perhaps add more panels. I just really also like that, Extrayus is such a bright and vibrant pop of color in the void, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just because that always pops out too. And, in certain things, of course, in art, they tell you, don't necessarily center it. But for this one, because it's such a big void of space, you kind of want the planet in the center.
I feel like that's a lot of when people try to show planetary things.
Right. It's you kind of want, it's like a photo. You kind of want the whole planet, not just a little snippet or something, or the slice of it.
Yeah, maybe you'll eventually show some of the moons in one of them.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is just the beginning of the planet. I gotta add moons and stuff.
There's satellites.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a cool little feature.
I am down, because there are 2 moons in the sky. I gotta put those in place. Absolutely.
But that's the nice thing about these kind of panels, is you can just kind of slide in a new panel in between and show a new stage.
Well, yeah, that comes up to some of the artistic challenges of these kinds of things. I've never really done a chronological storytelling type of art project where it requires multiple panels of artwork. So this would have been a lot tougher if I had to do them, say, on canvas or on paper and do them by hand. The way that I can do it now is so easy with digital art, because I just build on each layer, and I can save the previous layers that are, say, the void versus the void alive, where the stars start coming in. Those are just the base layer, and then the layer on with top, the stars on it. So I can just save the void as the separate thing, and then use it as the base layer for the stars.
Forward, yeah.
And that's the next set. So obviously it started off very simple, and it's sort of getting progressively more intricate as it goes. So I'm just really enjoying that. But it was a challenge, not feeling too overwhelmed by the sort of enormity of the project, right? Because once you start getting past the simplicity, it starts getting, with all the detail that you want to put in, it kind of starts getting a little daunting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that makes sense. And like we were just saying, it does allow you that flexibility of that. If you happen to be oh, crud, I forgot something. It's not like you have to paint over entirely of something and restart, right?
Yeah, because if I was painting on a canvas, I'd have to start a brand new canvas, which means I would have to repaint the base layer, and I would have to make sure that base layer matched the other one for the original panel piece. So it's just a lot of extra work if you're doing physical artwork versus digital artwork.
Gotcha.
So I think this is where I can take on a more daunting project like this digitally and not feel as pressured by having to save canvas or save paper and make sure the supplies are all used to their max, so that I'm not wasting them, because that's a big thing for me as an artist. If I'm going to be painting a piece, I want to use everything to maximum effect too.
Right, and I would imagine too, if you were trying to do this on fairly large canvas, you would have to have each individual canvas set up somewhere so that you could kind of
line them up,
look and see each one and kind of compare and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you could probably also say, you could do that on a real medium where the digital probably isn't necessarily perfect.
That is true. Well, that, and you can also run into issues where files can be corrupted, things can be lost. lost, deleted, or your subscription ends and you no longer have access, things like that. And so there are drawbacks to having the digital aspect of it, but I think it just made it a little easier for me to dip my toes into such a big project by having that digital medium. I don't know if I would have necessarily tried doing it on canvas.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially these kind of styles, right? But I imagine there's other kind of ways of telling a story through not just like panels, but like more on like a singular painting as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like we've seen in Entlink's comics and stuff like that, you can tell a story in smaller panels within one page. So eventually this might, evolve into something like that. But I'm really liking the singular sort of full page. Just because I don't want to encroach too much on Entlink's artistic, scenario, and she's dealing with the story, so I want to leave that to her as well. I'm just kind of tackling sort of the way the world looks, the way the creatures in it look, the landscaping. That's what I'm interested in. Sort of building the visual aspect of Extrayus.
I mean, that's always kind of interesting because I mean, obviously, like, being a dungeon master, it's always, you kind of struggle sometimes with, like, having a hard time coming up with ideas. I mean, I imagine even when it comes to art, you kind of have that same kind of struggle or block.
Yeah, it can be a big problem. And that's honestly one of the reasons I started this project, is because I was feeling a little stuck. I didn't know exactly what my next art project would be or should be. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of want it to be Extrayus, but I don't know necessarily what. We've kind of have a lot going on in the story.
Right?
But Entlink's also covering that, so I don't necessarily want to just like take that away from her. So I was like, you know what? We haven't really discussed the beginning of the planet, of how it came to be, and I kind of want to see that. I've always wanted to see how a planet kind of shapes up and how I think it shapes up. And that's what it started for me. So it really broke that artist's block
Same
that
difference.
I had, right? It's just sometimes you think you run out of ideas, or you run out of projects to do, and you feel kind of lost in between. You don't know where to go next. So when you're feeling stuck like that, the biggest thing that I think I found to do was to find just one new thing to get obsessed over. And so I would scroll things like Pinterest or Reddit or Imager and look for pictures of things in the world that just drew my eye. And if they really drew my eye and I couldn't stop looking at them, then I should do a study on that particular piece, whether it's like the moon or a flower, whatever, right? And I would just do artwork on that one thing. Whether, you start making creatures out of it, plants out of it, all sorts of things out of it, and just flex those artistic muscles. And doing that, I think, does quite a few things. It breaks you out of your artistic slump. For one, it gives you another project to work on. So now you don't feel like you're stuck in between. And it helps hone your skills so that you don't feel like, I'm not doing enough art, or maybe my skills are falling behind. You're working on it and you're doing some really cool things in the process.
Yeah, I think I think also, and it sounds weird, it's a dungeon master, and you've even taught me, it's like sometimes also taking a break.
Yeah, that too.
In that there is so much, so many choices, so many things. I think you've even said too, where you're like, I can paint this, I can paint that, I can do this. And it's like, okay, maybe the best thing actually is to take a step back for maybe a week or two.
Absolutely. I've had that where I've started a bunch of projects and then couldn't finish them.
I mean, there's always that, like, that whole funny thing where it's like, do things that are monotonous, right? Like go wash dishes, and sometimes you'll have the greatest epiphanies of artistic insight or whatnot. So sometimes breaking yourself from the trying to force yourself to do the work. And I think this really goes into, like, especially you commission artists, where you're trying to pump out as fast and as much. But that could lead you to where you, even though you are producing, you're not actually creating anything new.
Yeah, and you kind of, if you're not careful, you stop caring about the items you're creating, the pieces you're creating, and it just becomes like another job essentially, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between you and a printer when it's that,
Right, and we've talked before in like Just Us, where when we've gone out walking and stuff, you find certain plants and creatures and stuff, and you're taking pictures.
Yeah,
and a lot of times that's not even for now. Like you're not you're not like, because you're about to go start some plant life, study.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, hey, the next time I might think of a plant or need to add something, I'll just go through my photos, and you have kind of this like little catalog of all these little ideas.
As well as a little backlog too of new things to get obsessed over. If I do need that little kick in the behind to start something new, it's always like, oh, go through your photos, see if there's anything interesting that you saw, and then just go wild. Make sure, like you said, take breaks to avoid the burnout, but also I encourage people to find something new to dig into, especially if you feel like you haven't done art in a while.
Yeah.
So the opposite of the burnout, right, is where you're doing artwork all the time. If you feel like you haven't done anything in a long time, doing this kind of breaks that slump. And it doesn't just break the slump, but it kind of breaks your mentality of it too, where it's like, oh, I can't. It's already been too long. It's just going to be hassle now. If I start a new project, this is going to take so long. And you just kind of start talking yourself out of it. So this really helps, I think.
Yeah, and I think what I also think is kind of a funny thing is like the worry or like the self-fulfilling prophecy of artists like block.
Oh yeah.
Right, where you're like, oh well, I don't want to get started because I might get artist block or I might get tired, so I'm not going to finish it.
Yeah,
and so thus you didn't finish it because you never started it because you were afraid you would never finish it.
So
sometimes it is where like you were just saying, you just got to take those chances, get started, see where it starts going. And sure, if you have to take a break, that's not something to punish yourself.
Not at all.
But you shouldn't necessarily come in with the mindset of like, well, I shouldn't start because I won't finish.
Yeah, that's kind of like giving up before you've even tried. I always recommend giving it a shot. Try it out. See what happens. You never know. You might create an amazing piece, and that might be your breakout piece. You're the next Picasso. I always encourage that because you never know what might happen.
Yeah, and I think that's like important too, especially when, like you said, you're jumping into these new territories, these new projects, these. And I'm learning now that there's so much more into art, with these studies that you've been doing on some of the new races that are coming into Extrayus and our homebrew,
to look forward to.
Our homebrew species. That'll be really awesome to look forward to. And like you told me, like that's just one stepping stone that it takes to build into a creature or build into a area. So it is kind of interesting to see as we get it kind of building, as those little stepping stones become bigger and bigger and bigger, into where we have like a fully flushed out artistic book for the world.
Oh yeah, I am so excited to eventually put that together. I think it's going to be amazing.
Right.
But thank you all so much for joining us on this journey through the creation of Extrayus. We hope you loved diving into the story and the art as much as we did sharing it.
Remember, the full artwork is always available on our Discord. Come check it out and let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear your theories about that mysterious black spot on the final panel.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a review, follow the podcast, and share it with your fellow adventurers.
Until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and as always, stay nerdy.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Comic Cave. We hope you feel inspired to create and explore new artistic horizons. Before we go, we'd love to stay connected with you. Join our Couple of Nerds Discord community to share your own artwork, connect with fellow artists, and submit your ideas for future episodes. We can't wait to see what you create and hear your suggestions. And don't forget to check out our Couple of Nerds YouTube channel, where we showcase the artwork discussed in each episode. Watch detailed videos that highlight the inspirations, techniques, and stories behind each piece. Stay tuned for more episodes, where we'll continue to dive into the vibrant world of fantasy art and Dungeons & Dragons. Your creativity is the heart of Comic Cave, and we're excited to see it shine. Make sure to subscribe to Comic Cave, leave us a review, and spread the word. Until next time, keep creating, stay inspired, and may your imagination know no bounds. This is DnDWife signing off. Happy creating, everyone.